So this is Austin is from Community Financial Credit Union, and he is the team lead of Impact and oversees community partnerships and financial education at the credit union. Austin is a certified credit union financial counselor and has a background in education, and we're just thankful that he took the time to join us today and help share this information with everyone here. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Austin.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Christy. And thanks to all of you for joining. My name is Austin Golles, like Olivia just said, and I lead our impact team here at Community Financial Credit Union. So I oversee our team that goes out into the schools. We have a school program that goes into 50 plus schools around the state of Michigan, as well as all of our community partnerships, like Olivia said, all of our financial education, both kindergarten through 12th grade, and then into adult education as well. So I'm excited to be here today. I'm going to pull up my presentation. I'm going to move you all over to my screen on this side and share my screen. Can you see it? Good deal. Okay. Money management for caregivers. So today, we're going to talk about different money management tips and different ways you can make your money work for you. With this presentation, I tried to keep it very general, very generic. If you have questions about anything specific, please put them in the chat so that I can see them. I have the chat pulled over here to the right to be able to see it. I can drill down into any of these topics that I know about very well, or if it's some of the other stuff, I can obviously reach out to some of your some of your coalition partners and make sure to get the answers that you need. But I am going to specifically talk today about money management. I already introduced myself. My email address is here as well, and I'll have it here at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions for me, I am more than happy to answer them either over email. You can give me a call, or I can connect you with one of our team members here at Community Financial with any sort of specifics that you have. Just a little background too about Community Financial. We are based in Plymouth, Michigan is our headquarters. So I work out of our Plymouth offices, but we have branches all around Wayne County primarily. We're moving into Detroit and West Bloomfield here over the next year. And we also have branches up in the northern region. So up in the Gaylord area, Atlanta, Hillman as well. So those are our primary locations. Okay. To get us started today, and just to have you get in the mindset of money, I want you for a minute to think about personal finance and what personal finance means to you. If you feel so inclined, you can type it in the chat. But just to get you in the right headspace, I want you to think about personal finance. All of us on this call have to deal with money. Part of the world, it's part of life. When I go in and talk to high schoolers, they're just getting started on this journey, whereas all of us on this call, we are well into this journey with life and with money and all of that stuff. So if you want to just take a minute, what does personal finance mean to you? Lisa, I see a rainy day fund. We are going to talk about those rainy day and emergency funds here in a few minutes. So what does personal finance mean to you? Just to get you in that headspace. So personal finance, so what I'm going to talk about today, kind of bumps into two different categories. The first path is the nuts and bolts path. This is the boring part of money, if we're all being honest here. Personal finance in the first path when it comes to financial stuff is financial terms. Different stuff that we all need to know, but it can be confusing, or we can kind of get caught up in the weeds with different financial terms. When people think money, or they think personal finance, they get very caught up into the terms and the different things you need to know, which are very important, but there are different ways to kind of work through those financial terms, such as what kind of accounts there are. So we're going to touch base briefly on what kind of accounts there are, what kind of accounts you can open at a credit union, at a bank to kind of help yourself with that rainy day fund, saving for retirement. Crystal, I see your note in there, all of that stuff. How to earn more money with interest and investing, and then what works best for you. You're going to hear me talk about that frequently throughout today's presentation. Figuring out what works best for you when it comes to personal finance is really the key thing. It's really the number one thing you have to do. This is hard. In theory, it is very easy to think about what works best for you and figuring out what to do with your money. However, this is hard. We all have bills to pay. We all have those unexpected medical expenses that come up. We all have to save for retirement. We all have to pay for food, pay for groceries, pay for that rent. This is hard. So though putting it in one sentence of what works best for you is easy for me to say, easier for me to type out. It's about actually planning out a strategy of what works best to you, which comes to the eggs. Yes, the eggs are a little bit, eggs went down a little bit in price, I think, over the past couple weeks. But yes, eggs, groceries are crazy right now. The second path when it comes to money is the psychological side, which is almost as important, if not more important, than knowing the nuts and bolts. I could sit here today and talk to you about all kinds of different financial terms, talk to you about different retirement accounts, talk to you about Medicaid, talk to you about Medicare, all of that stuff, which is very important. Do not get me wrong. But the second path when it comes to personal finance that's almost more important is how you think about money. So the first thing is how you spend your money. All of us are different in how we spend our money and what we do with our money. Depends where we are in life, who we're caregiving for, who you're spending money on. Is it just an account just for yourself? Do you have a shared account where it's you and your spouse? Do you have a shared account where it's you and your children, or you and someone else in your family? How are you spending your money? What kind of habits you have, whether it's good habits or bad habits. We also have those as well. There's different ways to spend your money, which can be helpful, that can also be detrimental as well, especially if you're trying to save money for those groceries, for that rent, for those different caregiving costs. The big one on this slide too is what matters to you. You have to figure out what matters to you when it comes to money. We all have, and I teach this in kindergarten, or we teach this to our kindergarten classes all the way in, is the wants versus the needs, which we all deal with from the time we're 5 till we're 55 till we're 105. What matters to you? What are things that you need to spend your money on? And what are those things you want to spend your money on? And knowing how to differentiate when you need to save for things that you need versus things that you want. This is hard. This is the age-old adage of not spending too much money on things that you want over things that you need. The example I give when I go out and talk in high schools, so forgive me, this is kind of a silly example, but this is one I use with them. I'm a big soccer guy. I love soccer. The FIFA World Cup, the Men's World Cup, is coming to the USA a little over a year from now. They're coming to play in the summertime here in America and in Mexico and in Canada, and I want to go. I have known it has been coming for the past 2 or 3 years now, and I take money out of every single one of my paychecks to save to go to the World Cup. I'm going to take a couple weeks off of work. I'm either going to go to New York. I have a cousin that lives in New Jersey that I'll go and stay with to see these soccer games, or I have a good friend that lives on the West Coast in the Oregon area. They're playing soccer games in Seattle and in Vancouver. So I'll go stay with him and go stay there. The reason I'm giving that example, one, some of you on this call might be thinking in your head, who cares about soccer? Why is he going to spend money on that? I don't like soccer. It's boring. They roll around on the ground. The point is, this is something that matters to me that I have known about for years. So how this applies to my daily life when it comes to money, when I'm sitting on my phone and I see something online that looks very cool that's on sale for $50, maybe a new vacuum. Or when I'm out grocery shopping and I see that premium bag of chips that I want, or they have this new brand of Coke that I want to try. They've got like orange vanilla Coke or something I want. It makes it much easier in my head to go, Austin, what's more important to you? That new brand of orange and vanilla Coke that's sitting right there for $10, or taking that $10 and saving it for those soccer games for the next 2 years so that I can go and see the soccer games? Obviously, the soccer means more to me than that can of Coke or than that new vacuum for $50. It's very easy for people to say, hey, save money. Please save money, save money, save money. You have to prioritize what matters to you. So that way, when push comes to shove, when you're out in the real world, it's easier for me to sit here and you listen to me talk about it today. But when you're on your phone after I'm done talking, or while I'm while I'm talking, or if you're out at the grocery store, or you're out with your grandkids, or you're out with your kids and they want to buy something, knowing what matters, knowing what you're saving for, whether it's a want, mine is very much a want. It's going to see the soccer games is not a need for me. But then when it comes to my needs too, it helps me prioritize very quickly in my head. And this can help you throughout your life. Like we've said, some of the comments I see over here in the chat or in your head right now, we all have priorities that you can think about. So right now, some of those top of mind financial priorities that you have, trying to rank them as best you can, which I know is hard, can kind of give you a plan, which we'll talk further about here as I go on, about knowing where your money goes. So then the other key to what matters to you is knowing where your money goes when you spend it, which comes to, in my slide after this one, we'll talk about budgeting and knowing how to save up. So I don't need to tell any of you on this call, but when it comes to finances and this different stuff, these are some of the numbers I pulled. So forgive me if the numbers are wrong, but you all know this that are on this call. True cost of caregiving, 53 million unpaid caregivers in the US as of 2020. So if you're a caregiver on this call, hopefully you could keep your job, keep working. Some of you might have had to not work anymore or reduce hours at work in order to take care of needs at home, needs with family, or otherwise. The average out-of-pocket cost, so the kind of thing that I'm leaning into today, is 7,000 plus for a year. Could be more for you, could be less. The point is there is cost to what you all are doing in your daily lives that we want to try and offset in any way that we can. So why this money management and some of the different topics I'm going to talk about matters. One, it's the financial stress. Money and stress. Olivia said it at the beginning of the call today. I'm a certified financial counselor at the credit union. So I do some of this work outside of my day-to-day doing the counseling part. Money is stressful. We all know this, impacting the caregiver, impacting who you're caring for, and also impacting anyone in your bubble. Anyone that you directly work with, your family, your friends, the different organizations and groups that you work with, money brings a lot of stress to that whole situation because, as we all know, most things are not free in life, especially those things that we need. And so figuring out how to deal with that stress with money can take a lot of relief off of your shoulders. The other issue and why money management matters is the lack of planning. So if you don't plan for different things, it can lead to debt. Debt is the big one. Debt is the easy one for me to say, right? Going into debt to deal with things that you have to pay for, which is hard in and of itself. My silly example of soccer games, like I said, is very much a want that has nothing to say for the needs that people have, where they have to go in debt to pay for that medical bill or to pay for rent or to pay for the groceries, which is why the lack of planning can, what's the word I'm looking for, can accelerate that process. You want to make sure that you have some plan because a lack of planning can cause that debt. It will burn you out. And then legal issues down the line could come up as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is budgeting and tracking your expenses. If I'm being perfectly honest with all of you on this call, I talk about budgeting and expense tracking with little ones all the way up to 55-year-olds, 105-year-olds. Budgeting and tracking your expenses is the number one thing you can do to get a grip onto everything. And Crystal, I'm seeing your comment. If you don't plan, you can plan to fail. You have to make a plan by tracking your expenses effectively. You can go two paths with this. You can go the old school way or the new school way. I very much am a new school person. I love the phone. I love the apps. That works for me. That's what I grew up with. That is what I use. I'm going to show you a couple of examples here today of kind of how that works when it comes to that. I love it. It makes it easy for me. I don't have to write anything down. I can log into my bank accounts. I can log into the apps that I have, and I can very quickly see all of my expenses laid out for me. My debit card that I have, my credit card that I have, as you all well know, you can log onto the computer or log onto the app on your phone. All of your expenses are there. Every time you swiped it at the grocery store, every time you double clicked on the side of your phone to pay for that Amazon cart or to pay for whatever it is you were buying, that is tracked for you. You can also go the old school way and go pencil and paper and write this out in a budget. You can use Excel. You can use whatever works best for you is the key here. I do this presentation and I talk about budgeting, like I said, with a wide range of people. The number one key is figuring out what works for you. It's as simple as that. I can tell you to budget, and some people will do it and some people will not. But what will save you stress is laying it all out in front of you and seeing where your money is going. Now, do not get me wrong. Doing this for the first time, if you've never done it, is very stressful because a lot of people do not want to see where their money was spent on in the past week, in the past month, in the past year. I wholeheartedly get it. I understand that in itself, like thinking about pulling it up and looking at it, is stress in and of itself. Because then you have to look and see where your money went for the past month. Wow, I spent all this money on that. But it also allows you to plan. So to lean on Crystal's comment that she put over here on Zoom, it lets you have a plan. No one is going to do it for you unless you take that first step of tracking your expenses and seeing, I pay a lot of money for groceries. Or wow, my medical bills, that's probably top of mind for a lot of you here. I pay a lot of money for this certain medication. I pay a lot of money for this certain bill. That hospital bill from the past week that I spent in the hospital is crazy. You have to look at it so you can see and then plan accordingly. And that's where they can loop in the senior regional collaborative here with all of these different organizations where you can figure out, here's this money that I just spent on this. Who can help me with this? What can I do? But the first step is tracking your expenses effectively. Next one is hidden costs to watch out for. So these are some things that might not be hidden for all of you, but I like to just point these out just because there's some things that might not show up when you first start looking at your costs. One of them that you might not think about, but this is a very real one for a lot of people on this call, lost wages from reduced work hours. I touched on that at the beginning, but if you had to, whether or not you're working, so some of you may be working, and whether or not you had to cut down on your hours, to deal with caregiving responsibilities at home, whether you had to completely leave a job to cut down or to work on caregiving things at home, whether it's emergency medical expenses, the other one on here. So making sure, and this is coming back to what we had before, the emergency fund is a good first step to start with to plan for these emergency costs. An emergency fund is usually the first step we talk about with people when it comes to expenses and planning for it. If you have no money saved up, it makes everything else 10 times more stressful. We all know this. If I go and I get in a car accident when I leave the office today and I have to spend $1,000 on my car in order to fix it, without an emergency fund saved up, that $1,000 can stress me out now for the next 6 months because I need to figure out where that $1,000 is coming from. I need to cut back on costs and things that I need in order to pay for my car so I can get to work. I need to, and hopefully my car is not totaled. All of that stress that we've all had, we've all been there. My car accident's one example, but you can think of one. An emergency fund is a good first step in order to give yourself a buffer. It's to give you that little peace of mind that, hey, I have $500, I have $1,000, I have $5,000 sitting in account for any of those emergency things that come up. So the first step you can do is start an emergency fund. For example, here at Community Financial, we have a high yield savings account that's 10% interest on your first $1,000 saved up. An easy start, an easy way to get started saving money. You can do this though at any financial institution that you have. So if you have a financial institution that offers a high yield savings account, if you have a financial institution that offers a money market account or a certificate of deposit, for anyone who doesn't know on this call, a certificate of deposit, you put your money in for a set number of time. It can be anything from 90 days up to a year, 2 years, 5 years. And it will accrue interest over time. So earn money on money that you have sitting. It's a very good way to take some money, put it away and not think about it, to start that emergency fund, to at least build that buffer. The next one, so on here, creating a caregiving budget. You want to think about specific categories to you. I put some categories on here specific to caregiving, but at the end of the day, you track what applies to you, which is hard for me to talk to everybody on this call, but you have to think about what categories are specific to you. Medical costs can be a big one. Making sure you're tracking all of your medical costs. When you get those bills in from the hospital, when you get those bills in from the appointment that you went to, tracking it, writing it down, keeping those bills in a folder. If it's a virtual, whether it's an email or a portal, I know U of M has their portal, or Trinity Health, whatever it is, where it's a portal on an app, keeping track of those costs where you're getting those costs in. Home modifications. If you yourself are making home modifications, or if you're paying for home modifications specific to your caregiving needs, tracking those, making sure that you're writing those down to keep track of those costs. Transportation is another big one. If you need a special form of transportation, anything like that, keeping track of that, as well as daily living expenses. So you want to keep track of all that. Laura, I see your question. My credit union only offers 5%. Yes, you can open an account with Community Financial. We have, if you go to cfcu.org, you'd be able to open one. I can drop that in the chat when I finish up here today. The key, like I talked about at the beginning, is prioritizing your wants versus your needs. Now, what I'm going to try and do here, I am going to share my screen. I do this all the time. I am going to show you an example of how to save or how to track your expenses. So if you give me 1 minute here. And if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat while I am logging on to this. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen? Did it change the screen from my PowerPoint presentation? Beautiful. Okay, so for my example today, I am showing you my bank account here at Community Financial. Now, full transparency, this is not my real bank account that I use on a daily. This is my play money. To give you a little context, I get paid money for mileage at the credit union to drive around to all the schools and community events that I go to. This account right here is what I use, my mileage money that I use specifically for play money. So I use this to go and get a coffee in the morning. You can see some of my expenses right here. I went to Big B Coffee the past 2 days. Not the best budgeting tactic, but you can see I have Big B Coffee on here. As well as different random little one-off things. What I want to show you here, so a good example of how to budget. I told you that I am very much a new school budgeter. If you told me I had to write down all of my expenses on a sheet of paper or use an Excel sheet, I would never do it. Never in a million years would I sit and type it into an Excel sheet or write it down on a piece of paper. My mom and my grandma still use a checkbook. I love them. I would never do it. It doesn't work for me. Some of you, that's a habit you have had for years. I love it. If that is what you are used to and keeping track of it, I love it. I love it. It's the same thing, different experience here, but this is our app. What I wanted to show you here specifically is in the Community Financial app, and this applies to almost any bank or credit union app. You can see right here, it tracks my expenses for me. I have my budgeting built right here into the app. I can change the dates. So I can go over the last 7 days, what I have spent money on. I can go all the way out to the past year and see what I have spent money on. The key here is that all of my expenses are here for me to see. I can very quickly go into these and see that 54% of my expenses are on food. I can very quickly go here and see that 18% of my expenses are on automotive expenses. That's probably gas for my car, driving around to all the places that I go. Personal and family, healthcare, all of that stuff. I can easily track right here. I can see over the past year what I've spent my fun money on. The other thing that's very cool that other banks and credit unions offer as well, let's click into my Big B purchase yesterday. You can see it here. What you can do in our app, but you can do this in other apps as well, is you can hook up what category, so I can categorize what this was spent on. So for example, and to apply it to all of you, if you have expenses that are specific to caregiving, for example, you can pick one of these categories. I don't know if it has caregiving as one of our choices on here. Child and dependent expenses. You could go in if you wanted to. I know this might not be specific to all of you, but you could change any expense that's not labeled as a child dependent expense. I can save this, and that will change it in my budget as a child or dependent expense. You can also write notes. So I could say this was for caregiving. This will help you track specifically what is for caregiving, what is not for caregiving, what is something that I wanted, my Big B coffee, What were some of those needs that I spent my money on for the month? The whole point of showing you this is that now if I go back out to it, it changed it to caregiving on here. I'm going to change it to a past 7 days so it's a little more specific. It changed that to a personal and family expense. All of that to say, this is very easy to be able to see where your money is going. If you have never done this before, if you have never built a budget, one of the first steps you can take is going on to your app for whatever financial institution that you have, whether it's an app on your phone or whether you use their service on the computer. However it is that you look at your bank account and look at your different expenses, doing this and seeing if they'll allow you to separate expenses from different categories can really help you narrow down where your money is going. I see your hand, Miss Fields. Go ahead. If you have a question for me, go ahead.
Yes, very quickly. I noticed that, well, I like to use packages, but the economy keeps changing.
Yep.
So if you're supposed to spend, not supposed to spend over 27% of your income on housing, but like 80% of the people in the country, I'm spending over percent of my income on housing. What the average is, so we know we're not overspending, if you get what I mean. Like,
Yes,
is it 10, you're supposed to set aside 15% out of every pay period for retirement? Those percentages keep shifting. Where can I find that information?
so you're looking for like the most up-to-date information?
Yes, if in, thank you.
You're welcome. I broke up a little at the end, but I think you said yes, you're looking for the most up-to-date.
Yeah.
It's hard to, if we're being, because things are changing on a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, and kind of keeping track. So this first answer is kind of basic in that what works best for you is the best way to lean. If you're looking for specific budgeting tips on like which ones, like the specific categories and the actual percentages, um, we have partners like Green Path Financial Services is one. It's based here in Michigan. They're based out of Farmington Hills that we work closely with. They have budgeting calculators that lay out those different percentages on their website. That's who we use or who I use a lot to pull those numbers from. So you could check somewhere like Green Path is the name of it. I can put them in the chat here at the end as well. I'll write a note to put that in. But Green Path is one. The other thing that you can do that I'll talk about here, I don't remember where I have that slide. Let me skip ahead to it real quick. I'll come back. Miss Fields, I'll come back to that answer for you. I have a slide about it in a little bit. I'll
Thank
touch on
you.
that as well. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And I see some questions over here before I move on to the next slide. The percentage after our first $1,000 is 0.1%, Heather. So it does go down. It's meant to be like a buffer to starter as like a savings account for the high yield. So it is only up to the first $1,000 is 10%. Then it goes to 0.1 after that. The different interest account I referred to, Jane, I believe I was talking about the high yield savings account that we have, but other financial institutions have those as well. If I'm answering your question wrong, please feel free to tell me and I'll figure that out as well. Okay. You're welcome. Creating a caregiving budget. The point is to keep a records of what you spent money on and any money you spent on your caregiving needs and different things you have done. The reason we do that and the reason that you should do that and creating a caregiving budget specifically. So the reason I showed you our website and splitting categories into a caregiving budget or putting them in a caregiving category is then you can take that money that you're spending, however much it is. I know those numbers are overwhelming for some of you, but then you can then go to these resources that you have through the Senior Regional Collaborative. You can then go and see, wow, I spend all of this money on medical expenses. My grocery bill is crazy. My transportation that I'm using to go to my dialysis appointment every week is insane. Then you can come to all of the professionals that you know in this collaborative, or you can go to your financial institution and you can say, here is the help that I need on this. And it allows you, one, for yourself to see where your money's going for caregiving expenses, as well as your personal expenses. And it then allows you to ask for help as you see it all laid out in front of you for what's specific to caregiving and what is not. So we already talked about different apps. This is how an app will look on the phone, where you can have it all laid out for you and it splits it up for you. You can also go the route of an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's like this or using it. This to me is overwhelming. So in my eyes, some of you might go, that's amazing. I want the numbers laid out like that. I want everything tracked beautifully on this sheet. To me, this is very overwhelming. That's a lot of numbers to look at. This would scare me. If you handed this to me, if we were all in person, I might never use it because I would go, that's a lot of stuff to track. I don't know if I can think about it like that, which is why I prefer the virtual thing. But this, like I said, is personal preference. You can go new school with the phone, with the apps on your computer. You can also go old school. Whatever you will use is the key. I have some budgeting apps here that I'll leave up for a minute. I have only used a couple of these. So to be perfectly honest with you, these are ones we talk about at the credit union frequently. So I have not used all of these, but these are some different budgeting apps, and some are better than others for different categories, I will say. So I'll leave this up there just for anyone to look at, or if anyone has any other questions before I go on to the next category. But these are some different apps that you can download or use specific to different ways to budget. Okay. The other thing I briefly wanted to talk about too is the difference between a bank and a credit union. So when it comes to your finances, or does anyone know, I like to ask this question out when I work with kids or when we go out to the schools, but does anyone know what the difference between a bank and a credit union is? I work at Community Financial Credit Union. What is the difference between us and say Chase Bank or Fifth Third or Huntington, Comerica? What is the main difference? Does anybody know between what credit unions do and what banks do? We're very similar. We offer a lot of the same products, a lot of the same services, but there's one big difference. There's more than one, but the one big one. I see that hand. Go ahead, Ms. Fields.
Is one is corporate, privately owned, and one is nonprofit.
Yes. Well, yes. Close. Lisa, I see. Did you want to add to that?
I thought that credit unions are, you become a member of the credit union where you're not really that type of stakeholder with a financial institution like a bank.
Yes. So you both are very, yes, both of you have the similar answers for the same kind of answer. Banks are for-profit institutions. I love it. Sonia just put it in the comments too. Credit unions are not for-profit institutions. So banks are for-profit. When you have a bank account, you are a customer of the bank, just like you're a customer at Meijer or a customer at Target, at Kroger, at Taco Bell. You're a customer. So they charge different fees, different services for the things that they offer. Credit unions, you are a member at a credit union. So rather than being a customer, you are a member. You are a part owner of a credit union when you open up a credit union account. I have this slide right here. The big thing I want to say, though I work for a credit union, so I'm slightly biased. Credit unions are better. I'm just kidding. But though I am slightly biased, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I have both bank accounts and credit union accounts. The big one that's different when it comes to credit unions, they're usually a lot smaller. Community Financial, for example, we have 17 branches in the state of Michigan. If you moved to Florida or to New York or to California or to Georgia, you would not find a Community Financial branch. Chase Bank, you're going to find a Chase Bank all over the country, all over the world. So banks are a lot bigger than credit unions are. However, the advantage that I think has for a credit union that I think all of you might appreciate is one, they're local. So when it comes to caregiving expenses or trying to get that personalized service when you're using your money or trying to figure out different ways to use your money, credit unions, whether it's us or any, there's a number of credit unions in Michigan that are all great. Credit unions are local. If you call our credit union care center, if you call the customer service center, anyone you talk to in our care center lives in the state of Michigan. They probably live within Wayne, Oakland, or Macomb County, some of them up north. You're going to talk to someone local who will be able to connect with your needs, figure out different things in the community, know what you're talking about when you're talking about your specific expenses or different things you have going on. You can also get that at a bank, don't get me wrong, but very local. They're not going to outsource like their customer service center to someone who's in a different state who might not understand specifically. The other thing that I like to prop up or mention as well that you can do, that you can take the onus on to do, is that most credit unions have financial coaches / financial counselors. at their institution. So first and foremost, this is different than a financial advisor. Financial advisors are great. Financial advisors are looking more for the investment side of things, making your money grow, helping you with different things, which is amazing. You can definitely lean into a financial advisor. Financial coaches and financial counselors, however, are people at credit unions who will help sit down with all of your finances and help you plan out next steps about, wow, you really are spending all these money on your caregiving costs. Here's this local organization that we work with that can help you with that we've worked with in the past. Here's all these different finances that you're spending on this. Let me help you open up a bank account or a credit union account that can deal with that. Financial coaches / counselors at credit unions are more in a volunteer capacity, and that they don't earn a commission. They don't earn any sort of like 1% of your money in order to help you. You can sit with these people and they will walk through anything that you bring in and kind of help you talk through it and work through any kind of questions or issues that you have. So if you have a credit union account, this could be a very good option with you to help with your money, to help you go and sit and talk to somebody in a very relaxed setting inside of a branch. You can do them virtually if you'd like, and they can go specific to your needs. Obviously, today on this call, I can't be super specific with each of you about what you're looking for, but you could go and talk to someone, a financial coach, a financial counselor, that could sit with all of your numbers, all of the things that you're looking for, and from a financials perspective, help you with what you need. I like it. I'm reading a couple questions here. Any fees or minimum requirements, Jane? I see your question about fees or minimum requirements with a credit union account specific to us. There's no fees on the high yield savings account. If we're talking about that, there is a minimum requirement of $5 to open the account. So you would have to put $5 in order to open it, but that's all you would need. And then Sonia, I see your question as well. Credit unions, do you find that credit unions have lower average interest rates than banks today, credit cards, loans, etc.? I will say that the one thing that's different from a credit union to a bank is that when it's a bank, since most banks are nationwide, not all, they have categories they fit everyone into. It's a lot more broad, like they will plug people into certain categories. It's very general, I will say, and that, oh, you're this age, you make this much money or have this much saved up, you're going to fit into this interest rate. Whereas if you go work with a credit union, credit unions are often able to be more flexible with rates and working specific to your needs. So I wouldn't say that I would say that we have maybe a little lower interest depending on the account and what it is, but they're able to personalize it more from a credit union perspective, or even some local banks like Bank of Ann Arbor, I know is one here in Plymouth that's much more local, that is great with that as well. Okay, next category here is joint bank accounts versus the power of attorney. So I will be honest that the power of attorney stuff is not my forte. However, the thing that I do know about this that is very specific and important to you all, if you've never thought about this before or talked about this with someone before, this is very important when it comes to separating your finances. So a joint bank account is easy to set up. If you're not aware what a joint bank account is, for anyone on this call, you can have a joint member or a joint person on your account. I see this all the time at the school level when I go out to the schools. If I have a 7th grader at one of the middle schools we work with, they often have a joint account with mom or with dad or with a certified or with a legal guardian at home. They're very easy to set up. You can go right into your bank. You can bring in your whoever you're caregiving for. You can bring in your child, bring whoever it is, and you can set up a joint bank account where you both have equal access to the account. So when you set up a joint bank account, if you have a bank account where someone is a joint member, you both have equal access. You can both withdraw funds, you can both deposit funds, you can both open up the app on your phone and see any sort of transactions in there. Everything and anything is available in a joint bank account if you are a joint owner of that account. This can help from a budgeting perspective, as some of you probably well know. If you have a spouse who is into numbers and likes to do all the budgeting or does all of that budgeting, you can lean on them to do help from a budgeting aspect and kind of lay out all these numbers for you. So this can very much help from a budgeting aspect to having both people on the account. Power of attorney And the reason I'm talking about this today is that a power of attorney is more work to set up. A power of attorney is a legal document that you can set up where, when it comes to your financial life and any of the money that you're dealing with from a caregiving perspective, you can set up a legal document being very specific about how and when your money or the person that you're caregiving for money is being used. This creates a different relationship when it comes to money. When you have a joint bank account, like I talked about a little bit before, it's full access to all the accounts. And Mark, I see your question here, which is a great question. I was going to jump into. Mark asked in the chat, for anyone who can't see it, are there any safeguards in the joint account to prevent financial exploitation? The shorthand answer is not a whole lot of them, in that if you have a joint account owner on your financial accounts, it allows both parties that are joint owners on that account full access to the account. So when it comes to financial exploitation and that kind of thing, it makes it very hard from a legal perspective, if someone is a joint owner with your finances, to take that person off the account. Or if someone is doing financial exploitation, taking money out they shouldn't be, or spending money on things that they shouldn't be, or putting it places where the other person who's a joint account cannot get it. It makes it very hard to do that. The reason that the power of attorney is so powerful is it creates what's called a fiduciary relationship. Fiduciary is a very fancy word if you've never heard it before. Fancy, I guess. But what that means is that this sets up a relationship where the agent, so in this case, the agent would be must act in the best interest of the primary. So if you are a caregiver, caregiving for someone where you're dealing with their finances, or if you're out there and you are someone who receives caregiving or receives different help with your finances, you can set up this power of attorney, which is a fiduciary relationship, which will then allow you to be very specific about what can be done with your money. This is the extreme advantage to this kind of legal document, is that it gives you that power over your finances that you may want to have depending on the relationship or how your caregiving relationship is set up. This is a very useful document. Like I said from the slide before, this is more work to set up. This is going to take a lot more work. If you wanted a joint bank account, for example, you and I could hop on a call, and in less than 10 minutes, I could have you hooked up with a joint bank account at Community Financial. It's very easy to set up a joint bank account. A power of attorney is a lot more work to set up, because you have to sit with someone in the legal field, a lawyer, and they will go through it with you. However, the extreme advantage to this, especially with some of the questions that I see, which I'll get to in a minute here, it sets up this relationship which minimizes financial abuse and helps you preserve privacy. Joint accounts, you can see all transactions. If I'm on a joint account with my little brother and I'm looking at transactions, I can see what he spent his money on. He can see what I've spent the money on. Power of attorney in this kind of document, you can set it up so that they can only see certain transactions that you're doing. You can set this up so a certain amount of money can only be pulled out of the account with approval by both parties or by approval with a third party to minimize that financial abuse, like you asked me about earlier, Mark. So if this is something you have thought about, where you have someone else working with your finances or you were working with someone else's finances, the other advantage to this is the legal aspect as time goes on. If something, God forbid, happened to where you have to take power over those finances in some way, shape, or form, it sets those rules in a very specific manner laid out legally so that it's not a joint bank account where someone can just go in and take all the money out at some point, or where they can spend all the money and there will be no repercussions as it moves forward. Okay, a couple questions I see in here. Heather, for credit cards in my husband's names only, should I share power of attorney proactively? That's up to you. I know that's not a good answer. I don't want to say one way or the other because I'm not a legal, but it's up to you. But you can definitely do that if you so feel inclined. How is a joint credit union account entered into a trust? That's where, Crystal asked, how is a joint credit union account entered into a trust? You would have to talk to the person you sit and make the trust with. You can enter bank accounts into a trust. It would have both of your names on it. Like if you're sharing a joint bank account with someone else, it would have both of your names that you would put into the trust. But that's where a power of attorney might be more advantageous in that you can be very specific about how much money you want in that trust or how that money's distributed in that trust at some point in time. So you can hook up a joint bank account. The power of attorney gives you more power over that transaction, though. Deborah asked, if you have a guardianship over an adult, do you need a joint account to have access to their account? And are there protections in place for fraud? Deborah, that's a great question. So the first part of your question, do you need a joint account to have access to the account? The answer is yes. If they are giving you, and I'm coming up to this in the next couple of slides too, if they are giving you their login information, for example, on their account, like from an app, if they're doing that. However, if you were going to come into the credit union, like if you were to come in today, or if you were to call us on the phone, call our care center and ask for access to a guardianship or an adult you have guardianship over, this is where it gets tricky in that you have to be a joint owner in order to access that account. If you are not a joint owner, we wouldn't allow you to have access to that account unless there's a legal protection or a legal order in place. That's where this power of attorney plays in. It makes that whole thing much easier. It's a lot more work up front to set up that power of attorney. However, when it comes to that, like being able to access that account or the protections in place for fraud, that power of attorney gives you much more power over that. You have protections over fraud in a joint account case. So to answer the second part of your question, you do, but they are not nearly as strong as they would be if you have a power of attorney set up with a legal document. Any other questions about that? The reason I bring that up is because a lot of you on this call may have a joint bank account with the person you're caregiving for, if you have someone taking care of your finances, and depending on your own personal situation, a joint bank account may be all you need. If you have a relationship in place where that's okay with you and the person or the people, the family that your family that you're working with, or the people in your life that are working with your finances, a joint bank account can be okay. However, I will say this, it is a lot less, and all of these questions are kind of asking that in this chat to that point. A joint bank account doesn't have nearly as many protections as a power of attorney relationship will have. So if that is something you are worried about or thinking about, I would suggest going the route of a power of attorney because it allows you to be very specific to you and your family's needs or your caregiving needs, whoever it is that you're taking care of. Does your credit union accept outside powers of attorneys, or do you require the credit union's power of attorney? Glenda, that is a great question. I do not know the specific answer to that, but I can find out for you. I believe off the top of my head that we accept outside powers of attorneys. It would surprise me if we didn't, but I am not 100% sure, so I can follow up with you with the answer to that question. Okay. Other quick tips and tricks when it comes to your money. Account access. So this kind of ties to some of the questions you all just asked me in the chat. The tricky part when it comes to finances is that a lot of things have moved online. And a lot of accounts need to be accessed. If you're like me, I probably have 10 plus accounts where I have some form of money, whether it's my personal bank account, whether it's investment accounts I have from working a job, whether it is a savings account that I have separate from everything to save money, whether it's an account I have to pay for rent, whether it's my car account that I have to pay off my car from the car loan that I have. We all have accounts. We all know this. This is not mind-blowing information. The key with account access is tracking those passwords and keeping an inventory somewhere where you can keep it safe. So hopefully a lot of you on this call have done so. But if you, from a caregiving perspective, are working with someone and you need access to certain accounts, maybe it's something you're doing on a monthly basis or something you're doing that you know you're going to need access to frequently, having a meeting with this person or sitting down with someone, figuring out what accounts you need access to, and securing those passwords, those logins, those security questions in a place where you can, one, find it, and two, keeping it somewhere safe. And this ties back to the old school versus new school approach. There are apps and there are different password managers where you can keep these things. However, I know there are people that do not want to put any personal information into an app or into different things like that, which I wholeheartedly understand. But if you are going to just do the pencil and paper method and write it down, you need to figure out a way that others that you trust and that you want to have access to that information can access that piece of paper, that hard drive where you keep it, whatever you would like to do. So obviously that's a very generic answer because I don't know your specific wants and how you want to keep track. The key is if you have other people or if you as a caregiver are working with someone's finances and you are running into the same issue where you're trying to access an account and you cannot get to it, you want to have a meeting with that person and say, hey, here are the reasons that I need this account. We're paying this bill for you every month, or your car payment is due the 15th of every month this time. I need access to that account. Keeping those passwords somewhere safe and making sure that the people that need to access it for you, or if you have someone that you're doing this for and they have account set up, making sure that you can get that information if needed. The next one that is very helpful in my counseling, in my experience with counseling, this has helped people very much so when it comes to a caregiving perspective, is to simplify and automate things if you can. If there are bills you are paying for any variety of things, and there is a way to set it up for auto pay for regular bills, if there is something that's coming in on a monthly basis and there is a way where you can set it up to auto pay so that no one has to deal with it for you. It doesn't turn into a stressful thing every month where you're working with your caregiver or you're working with your family member or that adult that you have paying for these 10 different bills. If there's a way to automate it, doing so can save you a lot of stress where you're not constantly scrambling. Oh, shoot, those 3 bills are due on Friday. Oh, those next 2 bills are due next Tuesday. Oh, it's a new month, so I got to pay it on this day instead of that day. If there's a way to automate bills, that can save you a lot of stress if you feel comfortable doing so. The other thing that can be very helpful from a credit and from a financial perspective, if there's a way to consolidate assets or consolidate accounts. I do this in my personal life and it helps me very much in that if you have 5 different bank accounts with 5 different pots of money, and it makes sense to consolidate it into maybe 2, maybe one for personal use and one for caregiving use. That can save you a lot of stress too, so you don't even need to keep track of a bunch of passwords or automate things. My personal example that I love doing this, you actually saw it when I showed my screen earlier. I use one of my community financial accounts is strictly for fund money. So my other account that I have that is for my bills and for the stuff that I need to take care of, I keep that money completely separate. It helps me separate it in my head and allows me to not overspend in one over the other or allow anyone. I'm very comfortable. I show my bank account that I showed you all the time in presentations that I do. It allows me because I'm comfortable sharing that with other people, whereas my other one is just for me and it's just my personal stuff. You can do the same thing in your personal life. You can have one account that's for personal things and you can have another account where other people have access to it that's spent just on caregiving costs. Maybe it's just spent on groceries. Maybe it's just spent on medical bills. This is not mind-blowing information, but people don't do that or they try and balance everything in one account. It could be advantageous to split those categories and maybe open a separate bank account for those separate transactions. So you know exactly where to look for all of this. Rather than using that budgeting app that I showed you, you could put all of it into one account or put it all into one debit account, one checking account where you're spending it all out of one account and save yourself that stress of trying to separate your finances. Next one comes to credit and borrowing. So I know I had some questions about credit earlier and how to borrow money and working with credit with a financial institution. From a caregiving perspective, if there are credit accounts that are sitting out there that someone is no longer using, it might be advantageous to close those credit accounts. This comes back to the slide before it comes to consolidating. Now, I will say this, it can mess up your credit score and it can mess up different things like that. When you close a credit account, as most of you on this call well know, but in case you don't, closing credit accounts. So if you have 10 different credit cards and you decide that you want to consolidate it down to 5 just for less stress or to have easier access to everything. Going from 10 credit cards to 5 will affect your credit score. It'll bring down your credit score temporarily. It may take some time to build it back up. However, if there are multiple hands in the pot and different people working with your finances, whether it's you helping someone or whether someone is helping you, simplifying by closing maybe your Kohl's Cash. My mom has a Kohl's Cash card that she uses. Maybe closing out your Kohl's Cash or your Kohl's credit card or closing some of those store credit cards and just focusing in on the necessities can really help to simplify as other people or as you're helping somebody else. So when it comes to credit, closing any unnecessary credit accounts can be helpful. As well as, and this is something that is very easy to do that can save you a lot of stress, setting up lower limits on credit cards. If you are worried, maybe from a financial fraud perspective that some of you asked me about earlier, or maybe just strictly from a spending perspective, if you have a $10,000 limit on your credit card, and you don't want someone spending more than that $10,000 or spending all of that money on your credit card that's for you, you can ask for a lower limit on a credit card and bring it down to maybe $1,000. That way it saves it. Crystal, I just read your question in there. So Crystal asked in the group chat, what if they are only unused accounts, not necessarily credit accounts? That's up to you. If it's just a bank account and you're not using it, you can keep it open. I'm very picky and that I like to close anything I'm not using just to save myself the stress of 10 years from now if I need to pull everything together, or if it comes to the point where someone's taking over my finances for me. As easy as it can be to not have them have to go find that $1,000 I have sitting in an account from 20 years ago that I haven't accessed, because trying to get into that account later on is a pain in the butt. I don't know. Some of you on this call maybe have had to deal with that before. If you're caregiving for someone and you're trying to access accounts from years ago that somebody opened, or maybe a certificate of deposit that expired, it was like a 2-year one, that can save you stress just by closing it out now, just to kind of narrow things down. I see the next question. Jane, why does it bring the score down instead up remaining the same? That's a good question, Jane. So Jane asked, when it comes to credit, closing a bunch of accounts. That is a good, so there's 5 different categories when it comes to a credit score. I didn't put a slide in there about that today, I'm sorry. But one of the things is how much credit you use. And when you are closing credit accounts, financial, the Experian, TransUnion, and I'm forgetting the third one, the credit bureaus who track credit scores, they see closed accounts as a net negative. It is silly. So to answer you, Jane, it's silly that they do that, because if you're taking control of your finances to close unnecessary credit accounts, it should be a win. Depending on how many accounts you close, your score might not go down that much. If you just close one credit card, for example, it might not affect your credit score too much. If you're, however, closing a card that you've had for 20 years, like I have a card that I opened when I was 18 years old. If I decided tomorrow to close that credit account, it would drastically affect my score, because not only am I closing a credit account, but I'm closing an account that I've had for 10 plus years. Credit bureaus might go, why is he doing that? So in the long run, though, your score will go up, and it's saving me the stress of dealing with that account that I've had open for years. Thank you, Lisa. Equifax is the third one. I couldn't remember the third credit bureau. So between closing accounts and setting up a limit on credit cards, that can just save you stress of someone going out and spending all this money that you're not aware of. Next one, financial assistance and resources. So there are government programs. I am not delving too much into this today because this is not my area of expertise. I saw some of the other speakers throughout this month who will probably go more in depth about this than I will. However, as you all well know, there are different government programs out there that you should take full advantage of as much as you can. I know there are a lot of work and there's different things that they ask for, but there are different government programs that will help you save money on different things. Medicare, Medicaid, VA benefits, whatever you specifically qualify for. Nonprofit and community supports. The reason you are all here today, the reason the Senior Regional Collaborative exists, is to help with these different issues. So I talked a lot about budgeting and kind of narrowing down your bank accounts. When you have a budget, so when you decide to do this and you have a budget laid out and you can see all of your expenses for the past month or for the past year, and like I said at the beginning, if you are seeing that, wow, I'm spending a lot of money on fixing up my house in this way so that I can walk around or help this different thing, or I need a new bathtub so that I can get into the bathtub, or need this kind of support for this, that, and the third. My grocery bill is extremely expensive month after month, and it's only getting more expensive. You can lean into different nonprofits that can help with these things. I'm a little bit biased. I was telling the group here, I was telling Lisa before we started, there's different resources on the Senior Regional Collaborative website. I used to work for the National Kidney Foundation for a number of years. I did all of their school programming. So I went out to schools and did food and health education. This is just an example of a website or different places you can find. So on the National Kidney Foundation, and it's not just them, there's other people who have these resources. The National Kidney Foundation has a Finding Your Way roadmap that's specific to each county here in Michigan. They have 5 of them. There's Oakland, Macomb, Washtenaw. They have one for Wayne, and they have a statewide manual as well. And you can kind of go on their website where they list out resources based on what you're looking for, and then can connect you with different nonprofits, different people within this collaborative that can help you apply for grant money. They can help you find relief, or maybe they have something where they can supply you with that home upgrade that you need in order to get into your house, or that transportation service that you need to get you to your dialysis appointment. So this is just one example of some of those nonprofits that are out there that can help you with this work. We have a partnership with a program called Starlight, which is very similar to what I just showed with the Kidney Foundation. You type in your zip code on our website. They then have personalized guidance to different local organizations that can help you get into different benefits. I have some of them listed up here on the screen: food, healthcare, utilities, childcare, housing, tax credits, anything of that nature you can find as well. The key to this, and this is very simple, but I want to say this out loud so that everybody knows this stuff is very overwhelming, in that there's probably 15 different things that you are spending money on. And in your head right now, you're going, Austin, I got 15 different things here that I know are on my budget that I'm spending this money on that I need help with. The key is, one, to track those expenses so that you see it, and then pick one to deal with. Obviously, there's more than one issue or more than one thing from a caregiving perspective that you have to pay for. But if you can just pick one, maybe it's the one that's stressing you out the most. If you pick that one and go lean into that and say, I really need help with transportation, I can't figure out how to do this, I have a job I have to get to and I need help with that, you can pick that one. Or whether it's the most stressful one, or you pick the easiest one, you're like, you know what, I kind of know who I can go to help with this. The key is to pick one step at a time and figure out different financial support that you can find with this. Okay, I see a couple questions here I'll answer before I get into. I'm almost done. I got a couple more slides and then we'll wrap up. Sonia asked, is it best to keep long-term cards open and carry no balance, or use them sporadically because some creditors will close cards due to no use? Sonia, that's a great question. I would suggest keeping long-term cards open and use them sporadically, or use them maybe on one expense. If you have a credit card that you do not use often, my suggestion, I teach this to students in college all the time when I go and talk at colleges, when they're starting, pick one thing you want to spend it on to make it less stressful for you. When I first started with my first credit card when I was 18, I only used it for gas. I used it when I drove to work. My first job was a summer camp counselor. So when I drove to the different summer camps that I went to, I only used my credit card for gas. So if you have a credit card that you haven't used in a long time, but in order to get that credit score up, I would suggest using it on one thing in your life that you spend money on. Maybe it's just once a month. Maybe use one credit card for one bill. Just make sure you pay off that bill at the end of the month when you have that credit card. Just use it on your gas if you're paying for gas. Just use that credit card on grocery expenses. So I would keep it open. I see a question about the presentation. We can definitely send a copy of the presentation. And then Crystal, you had a question, is Starlight only used through CFCU or can anyone use this resource for help? We partner specifically with them so that they have resources connected specifically to the state of Michigan. However, I believe you can access Starlight not through CFCU. If you just look up Starlight online, I believe you can use it without that. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm not 100% sure. I know you can for sure use it through CFCU, but I think you can use it overall as well. Okay, last couple slides here. Negotiating medical costs and bills. I'm sure a lot of you on this call already do this, but I like to point this one out when it comes to medical bills and medical costs. You want to ask for an itemized bill from your healthcare provider. When you are going to your appointments, when you're taking the person you're caregiving for to appointments, you want to have an itemized bill from whatever hospital or whatever clinic you are going to see. So you can, one, catch any errors. Errors can happen all the time where they might add some costs that you do not need to pay for. You want to ask for an itemized, and in case you're not sure, itemized bill means they are laying out specifically what you are paying for, what that $90 was for, what that $200 was for, what that $1,000 charge was for, so that you can see it. And one, you can catch any errors. So you can see and go, I did not receive that service. This did not happen. The other reason is so that you can then, oh, that's my next, I guess we'll skip to that one. The other reason is so that you can negotiate or make a plan with the hospital. This is a lot of work. I won't lie. This takes a lot of ownership on yourself to where you got to go to bat for yourself or for the person you're caregiving for, but you can negotiate different bills. You can work with different hospitals and different clinics to ask for a payment plan if needed, or to ask to cut that cost off in the future. You can work with the hospital or the clinic or whoever it is you're working with in order to cut those costs down in some way, shape, or form. And then going back to this one, this is something that's come up recently that I know a lot of people have asked me about in previous presentations. Prescriptions. If you have prescriptions that you receive on a monthly basis, there are now prescription tools or prescription apps that you can go to where you can find certain medications for a lot cheaper. GoodRx is a good example of one where they have a variety of different prescriptions and different things that you can receive through there where they have them set at one set flat rate, one set flat cost. This can be a good resource if you've never looked into something like this before. Next one, cutting costs. These are some other little tips and tricks that have been useful for people in the past. Another way to reduce costs is buying in bulk. So some of you probably already do this, but things like Costco, Sam's Club, BJ's, all those places are great. Another one that's very easy to set up, Amazon, for example. A lot of us here probably use Amazon or you have Amazon Prime. They have a program called Subscribe and Save, where you can get sent a variety of different household items. This doesn't even have to be medical, household items in general or groceries. And you can sign up to have them auto delivered to your house on a monthly basis, on a bi-monthly basis, every 3 months. And the advantage to this is that you can save money. If there is something you are buying all the time that you know you are using in the bathroom, in the kitchen, household items in general, you can set up this service. They will deliver it on that basis. You can delay it for a month. If there's a month where you're like, I do not need more of that, you can go in and you can tell them to pause it for a month and pick it up the month after that. That is something I know from personal experience and from people that I have worked with in the past. They love that feature. So if you are one of those people that use Amazon to order a lot of things, or if you know someone who's Amazon savvy and wants to set it up for you, you can buy in bulk. And they also, I don't know if I said this right at the beginning, maybe I did. They offer discounts if you set up certain amounts. I think it's anything over 5 items. You can receive a discount on all of the items in your order. This is a great one that saves people money, especially for those things that you are using on a monthly basis. It's called their Subscribe and Save service. I can see some people looking at it on there, but I'll leave that one up for a minute. It's right on Amazon. You can look and kind of read the fine print on that one. The other bullet point that I quickly skipped over, and Callie, I see that you've used it before. I love it. So love and subscribe and save. I'm glad that you've used it. So Callie here has used it before. And then Crystal, I see yours. Yes, the medical bills are the hardest part about all of this, as I'm sure you all well know. It's just keeping track of them and then working for things like insurance. So my next one on here, the home safety upgrade. So if there is something you are looking for that's a home safety upgrade, there are, for example, Wayne County has programs, or the state of Michigan has programs that are covered by insurance, where if you are looking for something specific for your home, whether it's a ramp to get into the house, whether it's a bathroom fix to fix up the bathroom, or the toilet or the tub, you can receive services through that, through insurance or otherwise. This next one probably resonates with some of you. This one is something that you can think about. So hiring help, what can you do yourself? So a lot of you on this call maybe do a lot of things for yourself, or you help someone do everything, which is amazing. The other thing you can think about though, and this comes back to the wants versus the needs and spending your money. If there is something that is stressing you out, stressing your family out, or is a burden on people in your life or the people that you are working with, that is where you can look to hire professional help. Now, a lot of the times these things cost money. Don't get me wrong. And we just talked about money and all these different expensive things. But if there is something that will save you stress, or something that you know you are not an expert in, but there is an organization out there that can help you with this, that could be an option to look for in your life, where you can have someone come in and help you with certain things, no matter what it is, whether it's something as simple as paying for an Uber, or paying someone to come and pick you up and take you to an appointment every week, or picking someone up for you and taking them to that appointment. So that way you don't have to do it and you can work that day rather than taking them, something like that. The other thing, if possible, being the caveat, so this is only if possible, can family help with some of those easier tasks? If you are doing everything, do you have someone who can come over once a week and cut the lawn so that you don't have to do it? Do you have someone in your life that can drive that day for an appointment? In my personal life, I have a little brother who was just in the hospital for a number of weeks over these past couple of weeks, and I have had to help him with some different things. So I have had to, he no longer can drive. So I have been having to take him to different appointments. I have another brother who takes him on the days that I cannot because I'm working. I have another sister who takes him on other days than I cannot because she has time. So if you have family or family members or friends that you trust, that you can maybe just ask for one task. Hey, can you please, once a week, can you drive me over to my dialysis appointment? Hey, can we go grocery shopping together once a month on this day? Where it's one thing off of your plate from a caregiving perspective, or it's one thing off of that person who's caregiving for you from that perspective. So that way you can kind of spread the love, spread the load. Okay, I know we're coming up on time, so I'm going to skip through a couple of my slides here. The big one, so this one is more for the caregiving perspective. Planning for your financial future and the long-term financial security. So I like to show this slide here. We kind of already touched on a lot of this stuff today. But when it comes to a caregiving perspective, there's different levels of financial stuff you want to think about. First one that we talked about very much at the beginning is an emergency fund, and making sure that you have money saved up for any emergencies that come up. The next one, if you have access to it, is a workplace retirement plan. If you had to leave a job, but you have benefits, or you had a retirement plan that you were putting money in, you can often access that account in certain circumstances to where you can take the money out of that account if needed. So a 401k, a 403b if you work for a nonprofit, a 457, there's other accounts like that where one, you can keep using that money to save, but two, if there's money that you need access to, because obviously a 401k is a retirement account where normally you can't pull that money out before a certain age, but if it is money you need, there are certain extenuating circumstances where you can take that money out with minimal or no fees, and you can use that money in your daily life or use it for different bills that you have to deal with. Traditional and Roth IRAs are a different kind of saving account. And then it goes up into the 529 plan and a brokerage account as well. We're going to skip to this one, and then I'm going to wrap up here because I know we're coming up on 5 minutes. So when you're planning for your retirement or planning for money lasting in general, a lot of this we already talked about today. So I'm kind of leaving this up here just for you to look at. The big one, or the last one that I didn't touch about as much today, but from a financial perspective can help if you haven't started this process, is the estate planning. So on the far right, which I think there might be someone coming on to talk about here this month as well that you can think about, but things like creating a will, designating beneficiaries for different expenses or different money that you have out there. The power of attorney I talked about in depth, and then healthcare directives if you go into the hospital or different things come up. Making that plan, both from a perspective of being a caregiver and having that peace of mind that you have a set plan with the person that you're caregiving for, or if you're one receiving care, being able to know that the people that you love, the people in your life, the people that you're working with have that plan of what you want done with yourself, with your money, and all of that stuff can save a lot of stress to set this stuff up. It's a lot of work. I don't want to blow past that fact that this is going to be something that you can do in like an afternoon or pull it up, but having that plan in place, just like a budget, just like having your money laid out, will give you that peace of mind. So when things come up in your day-to-day life, like they always do for all of us, you have that will, you have those beneficiaries, you have that power of attorney that people can lean into. Okay, to finish up, so my closing and my takeaways for today, budgeting is key. If you remember one thing from me talking to you over the past hour, please go and make some form of budget, whether it's the new school approach of using an app, if you have the bank account app on your phone, whether it's pulling it up on your computer, like I showed all of you and showing you your bank account and doing that, or whether it's taking pen to paper or going through your checkbook and writing down your expenses for the past month and separating them from a caregiving perspective and a non-caregiving perspective. It will give you a blueprint. It will give you a plan from a financial perspective of what things to tackle. What am I spending a lot of money on? Which one of these expenses are causing me the most stress, where you can either ask for help, you can cut it back if needed. If it's one of those expenses you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot more money on this than I should be because it's a want, not a need, cutting back from that. But you have to have a financial plan by laying it out. Using available financial resources, leaning on these groups that are a part of this this coalition, leaning on your credit union or your bank and going in and talking to someone and saying, hey, can I meet with one of your financial counselors or meet with one of your financial coaches, and connecting with them there. The key is to not think about it all at once. I know this is hard and it's all on your mind on a day-to-day basis with some of this stuff, but taking your time and picking one by one some of these things to focus on, and then making sure you're taking care of everyone's financial health. So both the person you're caregiving for, yourself as a caregiver, or your immediate family, your immediate bubble, whoever's a part of your life, making sure everyone feels comfortable with this stuff. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. That's all I have for all of you. Thank you for listening to me talk. If there are any questions, once again, because like I said, this was very basic, this was very top level, I have my email address up here. If you have a question, whether it's myself or whether it's one of my team members at the credit union who can answer your question more specifically, or someone I can connect you with, please feel free to email me and I can connect you with the powers that be, at least from a community financial perspective, that can help you. Thank you, thank you. I am pulling up the chat too. I think I just got one in there. Crystal. And I appreciate that too. I will say that I didn't even think about that too, where you might not have anyone to step in with some of this stuff. And that's where you can lean on some of these programs, some of these different nonprofits, or your financial institution, whether it's a credit union, a bank, or otherwise, where hopefully they can help with this stuff in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you, Austin. If I can add to that, that's why most of us here that are providers, it's kind of like where we step in, to help be that resource specialist, information person, to connect caregivers. Many of our caregivers we work with are here today that I see. We referred on to SRC, and they've joined in, and so they're getting help that way. But it does pull at your heartstrings for us who are actually doing that work and making that contact with those phone calls with caregivers and they just don't have anybody. It's really hard. It's hard
Yeah.
for us to help them to
Yep.
listen, support, and try to support. So I appreciate your information today. Thank you so much for what you do and just being out in the community to help with these kinds of presentations, whether you're caregiving or not. It's good. It's great information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Christy and SRC team.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone for staying. And thank you, Austin. You know, we are excited. I know we are at time, but I just want to say real quick, we are excited about our relationship with Community Financial Credit Union. We've been working on this for a while, so we're excited to have them support us and we support them. And you guys will be seeing a lot more of Community Financial Credit Union. And I'm really excited about that. Financial literacy is important for all of us. I don't have it all together. If you all got it all together, good to you, but it was a lot he gave today, and I was